They were built to inspire awe, to project power across vast landscapes, to tell anyone who looked upon them, this is the centre of the world. Britain is home to more than 4,000 castles, more per square mile than almost anywhere else on earth. They were raised by kings, warlords and conquerors. They endured sieges, civil wars, rebellions and the slow, relentless tide of centuries. Some are ruins, others are still lived in, still host royal ceremonies and still guard the crown jewels. Today we count down the 10 most spectacular British castles ranked by sheer grandeur, architectural drama, and the weight of the history embedded in their stones. This is a journey across 1,000 years, from the craggy coasts of Wales to the volcanic heights of Edinburgh, from the mist-shrouded Highlands to the heart of the English home counties. Let's begin. Our journey begins in northwest Wales on the edge of Snowdonia, where a castle rises from a rocky crag above Cardigan Bay in one of the most perfectly composed architectural silhouettes in Britain. Harlech Castle was built between 1282 and 1289 by King Edward I, part of his relentless Ring of Iron, a chain of fortresses designed to crush Welsh resistance once and for all. Edward's master architect, the brilliant James of St George, created here something close to perfection. A concentric castle of almost mathematical symmetry, its massive gatehouse flanked by twin drum towers, the whole thing rising in tiers of sheer dressed stone above a near vertical cliff. At its peak, the sea lapped at the base of that cliff. Supply ships could sail directly to the castle's sea gate, making it theoretically impregnable. In practice, it fell anyway, repeatedly. In 1404, Owain Glyndwr, the last native Prince of Wales, captured Harlech after a long siege and made it his royal court, the seat of an independent Welsh government that, for a brief, extraordinary few years, actually worked. His parliament, his treasury, his family, all were here. Then the English came back. A generation later, during the Wars of the Roses, Harlech held out for Lancaster so stubbornly for 7 years that it inspired the marching song Men of Harlech, still sung at Welsh rugby matches today, the last castle in Britain to fall in those wars. Its garrison reduced to just 50 men by the end. Today the castle is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its setting alone, the sweep of the bay, the mountains, the almost theatrical placement on its crag, makes it one of the great sights of Wales. So if you want to understand why people believed in Camelot, come to Bamburgh. This castle on the Northumberland coast, a colossal keep perched atop a volcanic basalt crag, with the North Sea crashing below on 3 sides, has been a fortress since the Iron Age. The Anglo-Saxons made it their royal capital. The Normans rebuilt it in stone. Medieval chroniclers identified it as the legendary Joyous Guard, the castle of Sir Lancelot in the Arthurian myths. During the Wars of the Roses, Bamburgh became the first castle in England to be defeated by artillery. In 1464, Lancastrian holdouts refused to surrender. The Yorkist commander trained his new bronze cannons on the walls and simply knocked them apart, stone by devastating stone. The garrison finally capitulated rather than watch their castle dismantled around them. It was a turning point in military history, the end of the castle's invulnerability, the age of gunpowder announced in smoke and rubble. Bamburgh was later restored in the 19th century by the industrialist William Armstrong, who lavished on it the full splendour of Victorian romanticism. And today it remains a private home, still occupied, still presiding over one of the most spectacular stretches of coastline in Britain. There is a saying in Scotland, "Whoever holds Stirling holds Scotland." It is not an exaggeration. Stirling Castle sits atop an ancient volcanic crag at the precise geographical point where the Highlands meet the Lowlands. Every road, every army, every king who ever moved between North and South Scotland had to pass beneath its walls. Control Stirling and you control the nation. The castle we see today is largely Renaissance, a magnificent complex of Great Hall, Royal Palace and Chapel Royal, built by Scottish kings who wanted a court to rival the grandeur of France. James IV's Great Hall with its vast hammer-beam roof was the largest secular building in medieval Scotland. The Royal Palace was decorated with extraordinary carved figures, the Stirling heads, wooden medallion portraits of kings, queens and mythological figures that were the equal of anything in Europe. But it is Stirling's military record that staggers the imagination. The castle changed hands no fewer than 8 times during the Wars of Scottish Independence. William Wallace won it back at Stirling Bridge in 1297. Robert the Bruce won it back again at Bannockburn, one of the greatest battles in British history just across the plain below in 1314. Mary Queen of Scots was crowned here in 1543 at 9 months old. Her infant coronation, amid the political chaos of a Scotland without a functioning king, set the stage for one of the most turbulent and tragic reigns in Scottish history. Stirling is not merely a castle, it is the hinge on which Scottish history turned again and again. Caernarfon Castle was never just a castle, it was a statement, a political manifesto written in stone, on a scale designed to obliterate any doubt about who was now in charge. When Edward I defeated the last native Prince of Wales in 1282, he didn't merely build a fortress, he built an empire. Caernarfon was modelled deliberately on the great Theodosian walls of Constantinople, the very symbol of Roman imperial power. Its towers are polygonal, not round. Its walls are banded in contrasting colours of stone, a technique unique among Welsh castles borrowed directly from the Byzantine East. 3 stone eagles surmounted the mighty Eagle Tower, proclaiming an imperial authority that echoed across the centuries. The message was unmistakable. Edward was not merely a king. He was an emperor, the heir to Rome, the conquering successor to all that had come before. According to legend, and it is likely apocryphal but wonderful, Edward had promised the Welsh that he would give them a prince, born in Wales, who could not speak a word of English. He then produced his newborn son, Edward of Caernarfon, who had been conveniently born within the castle walls. The Welsh, the story goes, had no choice but to accept him. That son became Edward II, one of the most disastrous kings in English history, deposed and almost certainly murdered. But the tradition he inaugurated at Caernarfon endured. The investiture of the Prince of Wales has been held here ever since, most recently when Prince Charles, now King Charles III, received the title in 1969. A castle built on the ashes of Welsh independence, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most visited buildings in Wales. History, as ever, is complicated. For 900 years, Dover Castle has been the key to England. Stand on its battlements and on a clear day you can see France, just 21 miles away. Everything that has ever come to or left this island has passed beneath its gaze. Henry II built the vast square Great Tower here in the 1180s, one of the most impressive Norman keeps in existence. Its walls up to 6 metres thick, rising in tiers of galleries and great halls that were the apex of 12th century design. But Dover's genius is not just its tower, it is the extraordinary network of tunnels cut deep into the chalk cliffs below, created during the Napoleonic Wars and then dramatically expanded in World War II. It was from these tunnels in May 1940 that Vice Admiral Bertram Ramsay orchestrated Operation Dynamo, the Dunkirk evacuation. 338,000 Allied soldiers rescued from the beaches of France, coordinated from a room carved out of an English cliff. The castle that had watched over England since the Norman conquest found itself at the centre of one of the defining moments of the modern world. Dover is also where in 1216 a French prince very nearly became King of England. The future Louis VIII besieged the castle for months during the First Barons' War. The Constable Hubert de Burgh held it against everything thrown at him, and that resolute defence arguably saved the Plantagenet dynasty. Had Dover fallen, England's history might have been French. There is a legend. If the ravens ever leave the Tower of London, the crown will fall and Britain with it. Today, 6 ravens are kept at the tower by royal decree, their wings clipped, their keeper a raven master with a ceremonial title stretching back centuries. They eat raw meat and biscuits soaked in blood. The British monarchy apparently takes no chances. William the Conqueror began the White Tower in 1078, the great square keep of pale Caen stone that still anchors the complex today. He built it not just as a fortress but as an act of psychological domination. This white tower rising above the city of London, visible for miles, announcing to the conquered English that a new order had arrived and it was not leaving. Over the next 900 years, the tower accumulated meanings like scar tissue, royal palace, treasury, armoury, mint, zoo, at one point housing a polar bear that fished in the Thames on a long chain, and prison. Above all, prison. Anne Boleyn was brought here by barge through Traitor's Gate and beheaded on Tower Green in 1536. Thomas More, Lady Jane Grey, Sir Walter Raleigh, Rudolph Hess. The tower has held them all. The young Edward V and his brother Richard. The princes in the tower disappeared here in 1483, almost certainly murdered. Their fate one of history's most enduring mysteries. Today it holds the crown jewels, including the 530-carat Cullinan diamond and the 105-carat Koh-i-Noor, and receives 3 million visitors a year. Few buildings in the world carry more concentrated history per square metre. If Caernarfon is a castle as political statement, Warwick is a castle as theatre. And what theatre it is. Originally built by William the Conqueror in 1068, Warwick Castle evolved over 5 centuries into one of the most formidable and beautiful fortresses in England. Its 2 great towers, Caesar's Tower and Guy's Tower, are masterpieces of 14th century military architecture, their irregular polygonal shapes and interlocking battlements so cleverly designed that they remain some of the finest examples of medieval military engineering in Europe. But it is Warwick's role in the great power struggles of medieval England that elevates it. The Earls of Warwick were the kingmakers of English history, men so powerful they could topple kings and place new ones on the throne. Richard Neville, the 16th Earl, known simply as Warwick the Kingmaker, made and unmade 2 kings during the Wars of the Roses, switching sides with a ruthlessness that defines the era. He crowned Edward IV. He then rebelled against him. He died at the Battle of Barnet in 1471, having chosen the wrong king for the last time. The castle was transformed in the 17th century by Sir Fulk Greville, a poet and statesman, into one of the grandest aristocratic residences in England. Its staterooms house a collection that includes portraits by Rubens and Van Dyck, and the Kenilworth Buffet, a silver display piece of staggering opulence. Today, Warwick is one of Britain's most visited historic attractions, part medieval fortress, part stately home, entirely spectacular. There are images that seem to exist outside of time, compositions so perfect they feel less like photographs than dreams. The view of Eilean Donan Castle, sitting on its tiny island at the meeting point of 3 great sea locks, the mountains of the Scottish Highlands rising on every horizon, is one of them. It is the most photographed castle in Scotland. It appears on more calendars, biscuit tins and Scottish memorabilia than almost any other image. And when you see it in person, the extraordinary thing is that the reality surpasses the image. The first castle here was built in the 13th century to defend against Viking raiders. It became the stronghold of Clan Mackenzie, then the constableship of Clan MacRae. Mackenzie's coat of mail, as they were called, the loyal bodyguards who held the island through raid after raid, siege after siege. In 1539, Donald Gorm MacDonald besieged the castle with a fleet of 50 ships. The MacRae constable, fighting with his last arrow, killed MacDonald, and the fleet withdrew. In 1719, Eilean Donan became briefly the headquarters of a Jacobite uprising backed by Spain. 46 Spanish Marines garrisoned the castle, awaiting the arrival of 7,000 troops from a Spanish fleet. The fleet was scattered by storms in the English Channel. 3 Royal Navy frigates sailed into the loch. They bombarded the castle for 3 days. Then they sent men ashore, found 343 barrels of Spanish gunpowder in the magazine, and blew what remained of Eilean Donan into rubble. It lay as a ruin for 200 years, open to the elements and the wind off the loch. Then in 1913, Lieutenant Colonel John McRae Gilstrap bought the island and spent 20 years and £250,000 rebuilding it stone by stone, guided, according to family legend, by a dream in which a medieval mason showed his clerk of works exactly how it had looked. When the original plans were finally discovered in Edinburgh, they matched the rebuilt castle almost exactly. Eilean Donan is a castle that died and came back. It is no less magnificent for that. Edinburgh Castle does not merely dominate its city, it is the city. Every street, every vista, every perspective in Edinburgh is organised around this massive volcanic crag rising from the centre of the capital, a castle perched on rock that was formed 350 million years ago. There has been a fortress on Castle Rock since the Iron Age. The Romans knew it. The Dark Age kings of Northumbria built here. By the 12th century it was a Scottish royal stronghold, and it remained. Through sieges, bombardments, civil wars and 5 centuries of European history, the symbolic heart of Scotland. The oldest surviving building is St Margaret's Chapel, built around 1130. The oldest building in Edinburgh, small and intimate, still used for weddings today. The Great Hall, built by James IV in 1511, housed the Scottish Parliament. The Royal Palace holds the tiny room where Mary Queen of Scots gave birth to the future James VI of Scotland. Edinburgh Castle has been besieged more than any other castle in Britain. At least 26 times, it has never been taken by storm. In 1571, during the Lang Siege, the castle held out for 3 years for the imprisoned Mary Queen of Scots, even after her flight to England. Its garrison of 37 men were eventually starved out. Every August, the castle esplanade fills with the spectacle of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. 100,000 people watching massed pipe bands and military performers under the floodlit battlements. Even by Edinburgh standards, it is extraordinary. How do you describe the world's largest inhabited castle? Where do you even begin? Windsor Castle has been the home of the British royal family for almost 1,000 years. Built by William the Conqueror in the 11th century, it has been expanded, remodelled, damaged, restored and continuously occupied by every English and British monarch since Henry I. William chose this spot with military genius, a chalk cliff above the Thames commanding the river, the surrounding plain and the roads to London. The castle he built was a timber motte and bailey. What stands today is something of an entirely different order. 13 acres of historic architecture containing more than 1,000 rooms, a royal chapel that rivals the greatest Gothic churches in Europe, and state apartments hung with some of the finest art in the world. St George's Chapel is Windsor's great jewel. Built between 1475 and 1528 in the late Perpendicular Gothic style, it is one of the supreme achievements of English medieval architecture. Its fan-vaulted ceiling soars above the banners of the Knights of the Garter, the oldest order of chivalry in the world, founded by Edward III in 1348. 10 monarchs are buried here, including Henry VIII and Jane Seymour, and more recently, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and the late Queen Elizabeth II. Harry and Meghan were married here in 2018, watched by 2 billion people. Windsor survived a devastating fire in 1992. An electrical fault in the Queen's private chapel ignited a blaze that burned for 15 hours and destroyed or damaged 115 rooms. The restoration, completed 5 years later at a cost of £37 million. It was one of the greatest feats of historic building restoration in modern history. Windsor is the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. It is the longest serving royal residence on earth. 950 years of continuous habitation. 21 generations of English and British monarchs calling this their home. It's not merely a castle, it's the living embodiment of British history. So which one would you like to visit first? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this architectural journey back in time, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.